Hey, it is 12 noon on Friday, which means it's time for this week's episode of State of Real Estate. I'm John Christman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We're here every Friday, 12 noon Eastern time, to help you mastermind to grow your real estate business. So what we're talking about today is starting your real estate career, how to get your real estate career started really on the right foot. We'll briefly talk about, what you got to do if you don't have a real estate career yet, but then once you've got your license, now what? How do you go about making money? What about choosing a broker? What about finding clients? What about finding leads? We're going to try to condense down everything I can about starting a real estate career, cover a bunch of different topics, so that way you're set up for success starting your real estate career. So that's what we're covering today. It's State of Real Estate. We're here every Friday, 12 noon Eastern time. You haven't subscribed yet, hit the like button, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that little bell thing so you don't miss any episode of State of Real Estate. My name is John Charisma. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. You're watching State of Real Estate. State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. State of Real Estate. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. My name is John Christmo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We're here every Friday, 12 noon Eastern time, live, helping you understand how to mastermind to grow your real estate business. For those of you guys tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, whether you're watching on our Success Center, wherever it is that you're watching, put a comment in of where you're tuning in from. If maybe you're with a certain brokerage, let us know. For all you guys out there that already have experience, that you're already active with a real estate broker, maybe you run a brokerage yourself, drop it in the comments. If you don't have a license, just let us know where you're tuning in from, whether it's somewhere here in Florida or throughout the world or throughout the country, wherever it is that you're tuning in from. Drop that in the comments so we know who we've got on here. And of course, if you've got a question about any of this stuff, send that in the comments as well, and we'll go over that. But let's get started with the tips to start your real estate career. So first and foremost, if you need to get a real estate license, what you want to check out is licensefl.com. Licensefl.com, it's got our whole step-by-step guide to obtaining your real estate license. And this step-by-step guide tells you about the application, the background check, the fingerprinting, the exams you've got to take, the state exam, the class exam, and basically everything you need to know to get yourself a real estate license. But look, getting your real estate license is just the beginning. You've got to get the real estate license, but then you've got to make that real estate license active. And to make it active, you've got to register your license with a broker. Now look, you might be starting your real estate career because you're looking to start your own business. Now, even if you're registered with a broker, you're still very much your own business. So even when you're registered with a broker, you're still very much your own business. You're an independent contractor of that broker. What that broker is there to do is for any legal matters to make sure that you comply with the Florida Real Estate Commission rules. The Florida Real Estate Commission doesn't allow you to practice independently unless you are a broker. And you can get a broker license once you have 2 years experience. But until you get to that point where you've got 2 years experience, you've got to register your license with a broker. So that's how you make your license active. Now, depending on what you're trying to do in real estate, you might wonder, do I work full-time? Do I work part-time? How much do I have to work in real estate? That's up to you. Again, you're very much running your own business, starting your own career, so you're really the one that gets to decide when and where ultimately it is that you're going to work. You get your real estate license. Again, the first thing you need to do is get the license registered with a broker in order to earn some sort of commission. But now the question is, what broker do you join? What brokerage do you join? There's so many of them out there, and there's a lot of really good brokers, and there's, some average brokers, and, a whole spectrum of things. But even amongst the great brokers, the great brokerages, there's going to be different brokerages that are going to depend on what it is that you're trying to do with your real estate career, what ultimately your goals are from your real estate career. What I want to talk about briefly is, maybe you want to get a real estate license so you could just earn referral fees. So a referral fee is you refer somebody business and you end up earning a commission. You refer business to somebody and you end up earning a commission for that referral. But in order to do that, you got to have an active real estate license in order to earn a referral fee. So those referral fees can be really great because you really don't have to do anything other than have the client make the connection with a real estate professional, and these could even be if they're outside of Florida. So let's say you've got a friend that wants to buy a piece of real estate in New York. Now, if you're licensed in Florida, you could call up a broker or a licensee in New York and say, hey, I've got somebody down here that wants to buy a piece of real estate up in New York. Would you pay me a 25% referral fee if I send them your way? Great. We sign the paperwork. You get 25% just for making that connection or whatever amount it is that you negotiate. And there's brokerages that are specifically for if you just want to earn referral fees. You're not actually actively practicing real estate. You're just trying to earn referral fees. Now, if you are trying to actively practice real estate, you probably don't want to go join a referral fee brokerage because you're not going to have the support that's necessary. And a lot of times these referral fee brokerages, because it's really just such a minimal amount that you're supposed to be doing, again, just really having these referral fees that you're collecting, you might not be able to actually practice real estate. Whereas again, if you want to practice real estate, you'd want to join a broker that would be better structured and better suited, not just for allowing you to practice real estate, but also giving you the training, the tools, the technology that you would need to have a successful real estate business. So the question really becomes, rather than what brokerage you want to join, but really the real question here is, what do I want to do with my real estate license? What do I want to do? What are my goals? You got to ask yourself the right questions. You figure out what you're trying to do, and then you could find a brokerage that aligns with your goals, with your dreams, with what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So I want to talk about what it is that you could do to basically figure out what you're trying to do in real estate and ultimately get to that point of better understanding. But first, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Stick with us. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching State of Real Estate. What's required to become a Florida real estate broker? Well, a few things. Number one, you have to have at least 2 years experience as a sales associate or a broker. Now, this experience could actually even be earned outside of Florida. It just has to be 2 years within the last 5 years. So 2 years of experience to become a broker. You also need to take a pre-licensing course. The broker pre-licensing course is 72 hours. It's got a 100 question and of course exam. Once you pass that and file all your paperwork with the state to upgrade to a broker license, then you just need to pass your state exam. That's another 100 question exam. You need to get a 75% on that. You complete those items and you'll have a Florida real estate broker license where you can open your own office or just remain with your current broker as a broker associate. To find out more about upgrading your real estate license to broker, check out upgradetobroker.com. That's upgradetobroker.com. You're watching State of Real Estate. What's required? Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. My name is John Chrismo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We're here every Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time, helping you understand how to grow your real estate business. Now, we already talked about what you got to do to get the license and then make it active. Now, something you're going to have to do to renew your real estate license to be able to continue practicing real estate is what's known as post-licensing. And this post-licensing, we've got all kinds of details on this one at postflorida.com. So postflorida.com is all your details on post-licensing. Now, if you've already got your license and you're like most agents, you're probably thinking about doing this post-licensing course right before your deadline, right before you've got to do it. And I completely understand where you're coming from because this is how I started my real estate career. I started my real estate career waiting until the last minute to do post-licensing. But how this ties back into, choosing the right broker, understanding what it is that you want to do with your real estate license. The pre-licensing course to get your real estate license, the big focus on this course is being able to pass your exam. So it's really focusing on teaching you the things you need to know to pass your real estate exam, so you can have a real estate license, so all the rest of this stuff becomes a possibility. But what you need to know to get a real estate license isn't necessarily the same information that's going to help make you successful with that real estate license. The big focus on getting the license and this pre-licensing course, again, is the rules, the laws, the requirements of the Florida Real Estate Commission. But now once you've got that real estate license, you got to know what to do with it and where to take it, where to make it active, and that's where post-licensing comes in. So there's not a strict FREC syllabus that we have to follow. There's no state exam you have to do for your post-licensing course. There's an end-of-course exam, but no state exam that you've got to do for the post-licensing course. So with the post-licensing, you could do it as soon as you've got your real estate license, and that's absolutely what we recommend, is to do it sooner rather than later. I made the mistake, like most agents will, and wait till the last minute to do your post-licensing, or wait until, almost 2 years out from when you got your license to go back and do your post-licensing course. But this is really going to help teach you a lot of things like how to present contracts, how to really, the big thing that's going to help you out finding that right brokerage is planning out your business and really understanding what you're going to be doing in your business, whether you want to have the business of referral fees, whether you want to focus on buyers, whether you want to focus on luxury homes or average priced homes, or maybe investor type of properties, or where it is and what you want to do with your real estate license. When you understand how you plan on making money in real estate, it becomes a lot more obvious of what brokerages are going to be best suited to assisting you with your career aspirations, with what you're trying to do with your real estate license. So you can absolutely join a broker before you take post-licensing, but I would recommend you take that post-licensing course first, because it's already a requirement that you're going to have to do anyways. Otherwise, you're going to lose your real estate license. So that's reason number one, get it done just because that could happen. But you don't have to do it right away if that's all you're worried about. But again, what you're going to really get as a benefit from this course when you have the time to be able to take away the information rather than just trying to rush through it because your deadline's coming up, is all of the business building content that's covered in that post-licensing. Really, again, this is just about the laws, the rules, the things you need to know to pass your exam, whereas post-licensing is built around how to grow your real estate business, what you do now with that real estate license. So I want to go over some other things here that might be something successful or something that might help you build a successful real estate career if you're just starting out, or maybe you don't have the license yet, or whatever the case may be. And ultimately, we want to help you have a successful real estate career. You having that successful real estate career is good for us. Why? I mean, we don't necessarily get paid directly off of your success in real estate, but we do get paid off of your referrals. That when you go out and you have a successful real estate career, you're going to tell your friends and family, oh yeah, real estate is great. Go take your classes at Tampa School of Real Estate. They've got the tools, the training, the things that you need to get you set up and squared away. We want you to be our biggest fan, and we know that we've got to help you get successful in order for that to happen. And that's why we do State of Real Estate every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. We also have Ask the Instructor that we do on Wednesdays, same time, same place, 12 noon Eastern Time, to cover more technical types of topics. And look, so if you guys are tuning in, if you're just tuning into the stream, drop in the comments where it is you're tuning in from, city that you're tuning in from. If you've already got a license, who is the brokerage that you're with? Drop that in the comments so we know who's tuning in here. And if you got questions on any of this stuff, put that in the comments as well. But let us know where you're tuning in from. Send that in the comments. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about more tips to start your real estate career. So stick with us. I'm John Christmo. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hey, so if you're thinking about starting a real estate career, it could feel a little overwhelming sometimes. Look, that's completely understandable. That's why we're here to help. If you haven't already, check out our Success Center, tampaschool.com/success. Or if you don't even know where to begin, give us a call. We'd love to help you out. We've got advisors standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way it is that we can. Our phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. Give us a call. We're the Tampa School of Real Estate. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. My name is John Chrisman. The show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We're here every single Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time, helping you grow a successful real estate business. Now, we talked about basically what you need to do to start your real estate career, and really we're focusing on starting a successful real estate career. So, License FL, for more details on how to get licensed, postflorida.com. Do it ASAP. As soon as possible, as soon as you can. You can do that as soon as you've got your real estate license to knock out that post-licensing requirement. But look, I want to switch gears out of just, what you're learning in these courses here and, just touch on some of the things, let's talk real quick just how to do like a basic business plan. Now, we've done episodes on this before, but this is such an essential thing. It's such a simple thing that a lot of agents will really just look past the whole business planning aspect of this here, and they'll just kind of get hung up on, I got to, do this, or I've got to do that. I've got to go, set up the website or get my business cards or do whatever it is. And if you haven't ran the numbers, you're really basically going into this without not any expectation of how much money that you're going to make, but without even knowing what actions you need to take to make whatever amount of money it is that you're earning. So you've got to start out with some sort of income goal. And look, we're going to simplify this down. If you take our post-licensing course, we go into this much more in depth, and we've got little worksheets you go through and that you basically lay out your plan of the money you make. And that's really the first thing we do in our post-licensing course is talk about this business planning aspect, because this is what's going to really set the stage for everything it is that you're doing going forward. So let's start out with some sort of income goal. And let's say that income goal is $100,000. So $100,000 is your income goal. Now, again, this is going to be simplified a little bit, but I just want to make this real simple, real easy, so you can start to get the idea of what it is you need to do to figure out what you need to do to get to that $100,000. If you want to make $100,000 in a year, what do you got to do every single day to get to that $100,000 in a year? And what you're going to do is you got to first figure out how to reverse engineer this process. You got to realize what the process is, not only going forward, but going backwards as well. It's like, if you've ever tried to solve a maze, if you remember doing like those little mazes where you're a kid and you're trying to figure out how you get to the finish line. If you start from the finish line, that's the trick with those things. You start from the finish line, it's real easy to trace your way out. But when you're starting from the beginning, you're going to run into a lot of roadblocks, and you're going to hit maybe a dead end, and then you got to go back and say, okay, well, let's go this way. Oh, no, another dead end. Okay, let's go this way. Oh, no, another dead end, and then finally you find the next turn, but then you get a whole nother set of dead ends. Whereas when you're tracing your way in reverse, it's very easy to go back to that finish line, to that starting point, I should say. So that's what you're doing with this business plan. You're basically reverse engineering this process, and that's going to help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls and problems that you're going to run into if you're just thinking forward rather than thinking backwards. So before we get paid a commission, what do we have to do? Well, we've got to have a closing. And then before we have a closing, we've got to have a contract. And before we have a contract, we have to have an appointment. And before we have an appointment, we've got to have a lead. And we could really dissect this down even further, and that's what we do in our post-licensing course. But this is a good, simple starting point with this. And you can always go back through this and make it more complicated and get more tactile with your numbers and factor in different expenses and things like that as well. But if you just go through this even simple, even straightforward like this, you're better prepared than not doing this at all. So again, if we're trying to reverse engineer this process, we're going to start out with that income goal of $100,000. And we've got to figure out how many closings we need to have to get to that $100,000. Well, what we need to figure out is how much we're going to make per closing. What's our typical commission going to be? So you might need to do some other math on this here. Let's say the average price home that you're going to sell is $300,000. Now, if you're already selling properties, you want to try to find that average number of the average sale price of the properties. But if you haven't sold any properties yet, just use something average for your area. If you're in the Tampa Bay area, $300,000 is about an average priced sale. So we take that and we multiply it. Let's say we're earning a 3% commission. Again, whatever your real numbers are in the real world, you'd want to substitute that in there for your average commission rate. But let's just say it's 3% you're earning. So that's $9,000 per sale. And then we'll have brokerage splits and things like that. Again, you could rework all of these numbers here to factor in all of these, again, other expenses that you might have and things like that, because you will have expenses to run your business. But I want to start out with just, again, doing this real simple, just breaking down, how much it is that would be a total commission on that, just to keep this super simple. And then what we're going to do is we're going to divide the 100,000 by 9,000 to basically see how many of these $9,000 commissions we need to get to $100,000 in gross commission. So we're taking that 100,000 divided by 9,000. It's probably going to be just about 10, so 11.11, which, should we just round down to 11? Well, no, if we definitely round down here, we're not going to end up with $100,000. So when you're doing this math here, you should probably always round up. So we shouldn't just get 12 or 11, and not just 11.11 closings, but let's just shoot for 12. That we want 12 closings. So not really asking for too much, because this is just one closing a month. If you're making $9,000 per sale, if you hit that 12 times, you're going to surpass $100,000 in gross commission. Now, the next question is, well, how many contracts do we need? How many contracts do we need to get to 12 closings? So not all your deals will end up closing. You'll sometimes have contracts fall through, especially when you're first starting out, because you're still starting to learn this process. Even after you've done post-licensing, it doesn't matter how much training it is that you've had, the real-world experience, there's still definitely going to be some gap between what you've trained on and what actually happens in the real world. And the more experienced you become, the faster you'll be able to think on your feet, the better prepared it is that you'll be. But even the most experienced agents are still going to have contracts that don't end up closing, that fall through for whatever the reason might be. Let's say that we're running about, I don't know here, let's figure 80%. So let's figure 80% of our contracts turn into closings. So what we do then is divide this by 80%, and you're going to end up with 15 contracts. Now, this is the importance of doing these numbers here. Because if you just did that first calculation, saying, okay, I just need to get 12 closings. But if you're under the assumption that every contract's going to result in a closing, but you're only hitting 80%, you realize later, and it might be even lower than this, maybe only half of your contracts end up closing. It depends. There's a lot of factors that could change this, and that's why if you're doing this in the real world, if you're already practicing real estate, you want to be tracking these numbers here so you can really keep a constant barometer of where it is that you're at on all this. But if only 80% of your contracts end up closing, let's say we did only have 12 contracts instead of the 15, that means we only have 9.6 closings. We'll round it down to 9. So 9 closings, and say again we still got $9,000. We're only hitting $81,000, which, I mean, you probably wouldn't complain about $81,000. But if your goal was $100,000, you're going to fall short of your goal. And especially if this were like half, if you're only closing half of your contracts, which that could be the case. Maybe, again, you're having a little bit of a bumpy start and only half of them are closing. So maybe you want to be even more conservative with this and say, well, what if only half of my contracts close? Then you want not just 15, but you'd want 24. 24 contracts to end up with 12 closings if only 50% of them. So again, that's the benefit of understanding these numbers here, because you're going to start to realize that you have to put more action out there to get the results it is that you want. Because if you go in there thinking, okay, I need 12 closings, so I need 12 contracts to get 12 closings, no, you're going to need more contracts because not every contract will close. But let's work down the rabbit hole a little bit further, or a little bit further out of the maze, again, if we're working this backwards, and to go from contracts to now an appointment. Not every appointment is going to result in a contract. And again, we could get into this more detailed and more specific. Again, we could really make this much more in-depth. And again, that's what you're doing in the post-licensing is you're taking this whole concept, but now really planning out your business for the listing side, the selling side. And so that way, because I mean, with a listing, it might just take one appointment to get a listing contract. But maybe you don't always close on it, so again, you look at the numbers that way. Whereas when you're working with a buyer, it might take 3 or 4 appointments to get to a contract. So again, this depends on how many appointments you need. But let's do we'll say 25%. 25% of our appointments turn into a contract. That might be a good average number for us to use if we're going to really kind of try to put together buying and selling for both sides, working with sellers and buyers. That's a good number to start out with, I would say 25%. Again, as you start to practice real estate, you want to keep track of how many appointments do you have to get to a contract. So then you could figure out what your percentages are and then ultimately make this calculation much more accurate. Because when you're not practicing real estate, this is all just theoretical. But let's assume it's 25%, that 25% of our appointments are going to result in a contract. So what that means is we're going to divide this by 25% now. So 15 divided by 25%, we end up with 60 appointments. Then we need 60 appointments to end up with 15 contracts. Now, wow, 60 appointments, that's a lot more. But we're not done yet. And we could even, again, get more detailed in this. But what I want to talk about, one other thing on this here, for just a very basic, very simple business plan to help you get the right level of action you need to take, so you actually end up with this money in your pocket, that you don't just miss it because you only thought you needed like 12 clients and 12 appointments. But that's the last thing here. How many clients or how many leads do you need to get to an appointment? And let's assume that, let's say 50% of our leads, and again, this number is going to vary depending on whether you're working with buyers or sellers, depending on how you're marketing yourself, depending on where you're getting these leads from, how hot these leads are, how urgently they need to purchase, versus maybe if it's just networking. If you're just like networking with people, maybe at your kid's soccer game with your coworkers, with your past coworkers from your previous career, with whatever club you might be in, or again, whatever people you interact with on a daily basis, that's more likely we're going to have more cold leads because those people won't necessarily need to buy or sell right now. But if you're doing a little bit more intentional and active marketing, maybe you're advertising on Zillow. I mean, those for the most part are people that are at least somewhat serious about buying their property. Or maybe you've got a website set up and you're doing pay-per-click advertising or whatever it is that you're using to get more hot leads. So that number will be higher than if you've got more hot leads. It'll be lower if you've got more cold leads. So it depends on where you're getting these leads from. So again, you want to get more in depth with this when you're actually running your business. But let's assume it's 50%. Let's use that theoretical number of 50%, that 50% of our leads turn into an appointment. So again, we divide here by 50%. And we end up with 120 leads. 120 leads, which we're not done with these numbers yet because this is an annual number. If we end up with 120 leads and 50% of our leads turn into appointments, then we should have 60 appointments. And if 25% of our appointments turn into a contract, we should have 15 contracts. And if 80% of our contracts close, we should end up with 12 closings. And if our average commission is $9,000, we should end up grossing $100,000. So again, you can see how it's beneficial to do this because now we just made this $100,000 number real. It's not just some figurative number you're thinking in your head of, I want to make $100,000 someday. No, we figured out here based on these calculations, and if our numbers are correct, if our percentages are correct, which as we practice real estate and we start to track these things, the numbers will be correct. We know the amount of action we need to take to end up getting to our ultimate income goal. So we need 120 leads. 120 leads, which that still sounds pretty easy to do. If we divide this out by month, by 12 months, that means we need 10 per month, which that's absolutely doable. To get 10 leads per month, completely doable. But let's say we need we want to figure this out on a little bit more specific basis, because a month is a long time. Because what happens, you get to the end of a month, you get to the end of 30 days and you realize you didn't have 10 leads. It's too late. So you want to think about this in a smaller increment. Let's think about it per week. If we take that 10 and divide it out by 4, we need about 2.5, or we'll just round it up to 3 a week. So that's what, with these numbers here, you'd want to shoot for, is 3 leads per week. If 3 leads per week and everything else holds true, you should actually end up with more than $100,000 in gross commission, which is going to be good because we haven't talked about any expenses or anything like that in here. But if you got $100,000 coming in gross commission, you can afford to have some expenses. So that's what you want to focus on here. How do I get 3 leads per week? How do I get 3 leads per week? And then if we need 60 appointments in this year, how many appointments do you need per week? How many contracts do you need per week? Really, we just need to have about 1.5, maybe 2 per month. If we shoot for 2 per month, we'll way surpass our goal here. But these are the numbers that you want to do the calculations on and really figure out this on almost a daily basis even. Now, because we're using a fairly low goal here for gross commission, yes, this is a low goal. You can make much more than $100,000, especially if we're talking about gross before we have any expenses factored in. And that's where you want to start to think of this on a daily basis as well. But getting that 3 leads per week, that's absolutely doable for you. Now, are your numbers going to look like this exactly? No. These are good numbers maybe to start off with. Maybe you want to be more conservative and cut these down to a little bit lower and overwork, because if you overperform this and all these numbers hold true, you'll way surpass that $100,000. If you want to try to get 1 lead per day, then if all these other numbers hold true here, you should end up with much more than $100,000 at the end of the year. But this whole business planning exercise, this is something super essential that I highly recommend that you do. We're going to drop in the comments of it here of the link to our business plan calculator on our Success Center. It's a slightly more in-depth version of this here, where you plug in the numbers of how much income you want to make, what your average price is going to be, what your average sale price is, what the commission rate it is that you want to charge, and it computes these numbers automatically for you. So you don't even have to do this math here, and it'll tell you you need this many leads per day, you need this many appointments, you need this many contracts, and it breaks down all these numbers for you. So it makes it a little bit simpler, a little bit easier to actually do that math. And again, if you take our post-licensing course, we go through this much more in depth. So get that course knocked out sooner rather than later. But look, this business planning aspect, this is the number one thing I'd recommend that you do before anything else. Even if you haven't got your real estate license yet, start working these numbers, because what's going to happen as you go through that pre-licensing course to get your real estate license, to pass the exam, there'll be some stuff in there that you find interesting, but I guarantee you there's going to be information in there that you don't find interesting, but it's information you need to know not only to pass your exam, but to ensure you practice real estate legally. But it's not always the most exciting. Real estate law isn't the most exciting topics. Sometimes it will be. Again, it depends on what your interest level is of it and whatnot, but I guarantee you there's going to be things in there that you don't find interesting. But what you want to do is use this income goal of what you're really doing the real estate license for. Why you're really doing this is to make money and have control of the way it is that you make money and be able to make as much money as you want to, depending on how much work it is that you put into it. And maybe also how efficiently and how smart you are with this work. Because there's all kinds of ways, automate and really get deep into really monetizing this process at a high level, especially if you start building out a team, because then it makes it really easy to hit these numbers on a daily basis when you've got more than just yourself working towards this common goal here. But that's where you're going to have goals much higher than just $100,000 in annual income, especially when you've got a team built out around you. You probably want it where each person on that team is bringing in $100,000 a year in gross annual income. But it all starts with you doing this math, with running through these calculations. So I'm going to drop that link in the comments so that way you guys are able to go through and just work these numbers. And even if you've been in real estate for a while, see Mark Vansco tuning in over on Facebook. What's going on, Mark? And Mark's had his license for a while now, but Mark, maybe you want to go back here and revisit these numbers. I'm sure, because Mark's a rock star, he's probably out there running these numbers every week and every day, make sure he's staying on track for his goal. But if you're not, if any of you guys out there or not that have had a real estate license, get back to the basics. Get back to understanding what actions you need to take. And when you are practicing real estate, make sure you're tracking your conversion rates. Keep track of how many contracts you got this month or this week or this year or last year, and figure out these numbers here. Because what you'll see is like, man, I'm going on a lot of appointments and I'm only getting 25% of my appointments. Or maybe it's only 10%. Maybe only 10% of your appointments are turning into a contract. And you say, man, that's a really low number there. How do I make my appointments better? How do I make my appointments more purposeful so I get a higher conversion rate there, where I turn, instead of 10% appointments into 25% appointments? And now, if you do the same amount of work, but you're just doing it better, that's going to change this end goal for your income. So again, even if you've been experienced and you've been practicing real estate for a while, I highly recommend you go in there and you crunch these numbers. You go calculate this out and see where you're at and see if you're on track with your goal, or if you've lost sight of that finish line. It's really easy to happen, especially the busier that you get. The busier that you get, you're very involved in the present, and your mind loses sight of what's on the horizon, what's in the future. And this is all about planning out that future, so that way the work it is that you're doing today is for better tomorrow. But look, that's about all the time we've got for today's show of State of Real Estate. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you've got questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, drop that in the chat, or better yet, just give us a call. We've got advisors standing by to help you through this process. If you need to get a real estate license, if you need to complete that post-licensing, or you got continuing education, or whatever it is that you've got to do, hit us up. Our phone number, you can text us, you can call us. It's 813-333-2676. Again, 813-333-2676. You can check us out online at tampaschool.com. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that little bell icon so you get notifications whenever it is that we go live. Hit that bell. Watch it. It's a fun thing when you click that bell, what happens. So you're going to get notifications every time we go live, whether it's State of Real Estate, the videos that we drop every single day, because these are all designed to help you build a successful real estate career. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Have you completed your post-licensing education yet? Look, I know you're probably thinking, hey, it's not my renewal deadline, I don't need to do post-licensing yet, but look, here's why you want to do post-licensing as soon as you've got your real estate license, as soon as you're able to take post-licensing. It's not just another course about arbitrary laws that you're never going to use again. It's about real-world, usable topics that'll help you grow your real estate business, to help you take it to the next level. Look, let me ask you this one question. If this course helps you close just one deal, if you get one extra deal from post-licensing, is it worth the investment? I'd say it is. We get paid pretty well, so one deal means a lot of money. Check out postflorida.com. That's postflorida.com for the full details about post-licensing. You're watching State of Real Estate.